Welcome back to the Marcus Milione podcast. I have Sean here with me again, who I think is probably going to be a mainstay. And today we are joined by Paige Doherty. I believe I'm saying that right, correct?
Yes.
All right. She is an extremely accomplished person. I remember Sean and I doing research on her, talking about how much she's done for being so young. And we couldn't believe it. We kind of felt inadequate. But yeah, she is in venture capital. I think it's a extremely interesting space, and extremely interesting how she is a part of that community so young. But I will let her introduce herself a bit, and then probably we'll jump into early life if you're cool with that.
Yeah, sounds great. Thanks so much for having me on. Really appreciate you reaching out. I'm Paige. I'm one of the founding partners behind Genius Ventures. We're an early stage venture firm focused on investing in pre-seed and seed stage companies at the future of work and the future of play. One of the main sectors I focus on is creator tools, which is really cool because I'm a creator. So I wrote an illustrated children's book about venture for adults because I think it's a really opaque industry and everyone can benefit from information being a bit more transparent there. That's what led me to doing my first syndicate deal, meeting my business partner, and then we ended up raising a $5 million fund one in the past nine months, long road.
Holy cow.
Yeah, and then I run a podcast called Seed to Harvest. I was having all these incredible conversations during fundraising, but due to 506B, I couldn't publicly solicit or talk about what I was building. I had to keep a big fat secret. So I was like, I would love to bring some of these conversations to the mainstream. So I interview investors, creators, and founders about stories and frameworks in hopes of making the industry a bit more transparent. So yeah, that's me. Graduated from college in 2020, studied computer science.
It's insane how young you are. Like I remember looking it up, and you graduated 2 years ago, which is insane. But now you're, running a fund, which I think is a lot of people's dream. But I know I'm very much of the traditional finance, like investment banking. Then you jump to a hedge fund or a private equity firm, and then maybe you platform from there into venture capital. So yeah. I guess my biggest question for you is, like, growing up, take it back to middle school, high school. What was on your plan? Like, what was your plan? I don't think I probably wasn't venture capital, I would imagine.
I was just vibing, honestly. I don't know. I feel like I had a really cool childhood. My dad is a mechanical engineer, so he worked on really cool, like, cloud-based systems and printers. Then my mom is an artist, and we traveled a lot, camping, like, all over the Southwest U.S. and just cultivated a deep love of nature and camping and reading. So I would, like, come back from the library, like 20 books, and I had, like, my perfect technique for getting out of the door. I would, like, hold all of this massive stack of books, like, under my chin and, like, booty bump, like, the handicap sign so the door would open. So that was me growing up, and I always loved, I think a lot of it was due to, like, my parents, my upbringing, like that intersection of art and technology. And then through reading so much, I really became passionate about writing. So when I was little, I would, like, copy Nancy Drew books, like literally, like, bar for bar, writing these books out because I wanted to be a writer. And that came true last year when I wrote Seed to Harvest. I don't think I had, if I was a betting woman, I don't think I would have bet on the fact that my first book would have been a children's book about venture capital. But yeah, I was just vibing. I loved, like, learning how things worked and what people are interested in. I think curiosity is something that's definitely carried me through most things I've done.
Was there any pressure from either your mom or your dad to go down any sort of route, or was it just kind of let you experiment, see what you're interested in, and then take it from there?
This is a great question. So I would say I've always been pretty self-motivated. I think there's a lot of times in college where I was like, I want to drop out and, like, do drop shipping. Like, I want to drop out of college and do, like, X, Y, and Z. But the reason I didn't end up dropping out of college was because I had been awarded, like, a full ride to San Diego State, which is a big part of the reason why I chose to go there, and was working my way through school. And I just felt I was, like, if I drop out and this guy gave me a scholarship and he's, passed away, like what
Bad
I feel like his
karma.
family would feel bad. And so I was like, gotta keep going. So yeah, I feel like I just was like buckling down. I was like, all right, let's find things that are interesting to me. I don't think I was ever like a 10x coder. I was always doing like 10 million different things. So I was never particularly fantastic at any one of them. One of my mentors was like, all right, dude, you're like a mile wide and an inch deep, like pick something. And then I feel like this is pretty early for most folks to like figure out what they want to do. But I found venture, and I found it through this entrepreneurship program called the Live Entrepreneurship Program. And then I went on and did a competition called the Venture Capital Investment Competition Team, which I'm now a coach of. They're competing today, which is super exciting.
Good luck.
Yeah. And I remember sitting in the partner meeting where we were presenting like our term sheets to these partners at Google, and they came from like all across Silicon Valley. And I just remember feeling a spark that I had never felt before of excitement. And I remember like getting home and like I had my little like post-it note vision board. Like one of them was like Forbes under 30, and one of them was like write a book, and one of them was like, and then after that competition, I added like start an investment firm. But for me, it was like a 10-year long goal. Like I was like, I want to do this sometime in the future. It just happened a bit sooner than I anticipated.
Had you always been somebody like, I guess, and I speak because I just recently started like writing down affirmations and like kind of manifestation type deal, and I was always one of those skeptic people. Like I was like, I don't know if it's for me.
It's like how people are like skeptic about crypto, and then they make 20K, and then they're like, okay,
and then they're the biggest crypto person.
Yeah, then they don't stop talking about it. But because I was like so skeptical, and then I started doing it, and I was like, wait, there might be something here. So was it always something you were doing, or did it start around a certain age? Like, how did you even get into it? Like, we're just writing stuff down.
I think like being a part of nature, there was this innate connection with spirituality. And I think as I've gotten older, I've really recognized the importance of developing my own intuition, and kind of the way that I think about it is like physical intelligence. When you're making certain decisions or spending time with people, like how do you energetically feel in that moment? And is that a way in which you'd like to continue showing up? So that's when I talk about like I had felt that spark when I first participated in that venture competition. That was me listening to like my like physical intelligence and intuition, and wanting to continue on that path. As for manifestation, we watched The Secret, which is like really cheesy in our entrepreneurship class, but one of our like goals was to do a vision board, and I never made a vision board, but I just did like post-it notes. And I saw this quote recently on an article. No, I'm lying. It was definitely on a TikTok.
Hey, that's okay.
And it was like, your life follows in the direction of your strongest thought. And I think a lot of manifestation happens around that. Like everyone encounters the world from a different perspective, different background, different, attitude. And for me, like having a very positive and curious attitude has been really crucial in being able to like be playful in an industry that has long been considered very, my expectation of it was like a bunch of old dudes in Mahogany Library, like smoking cigars.
Yeah.
And I think like keeping that sense of like positivity and curiosity allowed me to understand that a lot of things, like you can use tools like venture or building businesses in a way that aligns with your values. But I think some folks can see things and have a assumption of like, oh, that's bad, or like X, Y, and Z, and don't try to like apply it in a way that they feel aligns with what they're doing. So that's kind of how I think about it. Is like manifestation is when you're following your strongest thought. And for me, it was really important to have goals. I kind of like reset mine recently because I ended up like
You blew through them clearly.
Yeah.
I was about to say, when you were creating your vision board, our visions were much different. You were doing Forbes 30 under 30. You know, I'm just trying to make it through the next week.
Well, I think like that was what helped me make it through the next week, because I was like, this will happen. Like eventually I have like a longer term goal to be working towards. When I was younger, like I had a really tough time. And I think for me, those elements of like being grateful and then having goals that were larger than myself, a lot of them revolving around helping other people understand the industries that I was interested in, really helped me feel better in general. Just thinking about it, like the human brain is meant to keep you alive. It's not meant to keep you happy. And so you kind of have to like build frameworks around purpose in my opinion. But
so when you got to college, I imagine you kind of like found your way into that venture capital program, which I would have loved to have at college. So I think like the stars aligned a bit for you, like the fact that was offered.
It was like the first year they were doing it, and they were like, it was like a ragtag team of like 5 of us. They couldn't like find anyone else to recruit.
Yeah, that's that's awesome.
Massive. Like we started like a whole class on SUC campus. My goal is to make it like a 3-credit like teaching class.
So is it a class or like a club, or is it a club that counts as a class?
So it's a competition. And this year I coach it with Robert Schulte, who has taken a bunch of companies like public or sold and works at, is like closely involved with Pioneer Square Labs in Seattle. And we had originally started recruiting for the competition. We got like a ton of inbound interest from folks like across finance, engineering, marketing, art. I think venture is a field that you can go into regardless of background, even if it feels like sometimes you have to go the IB route. And so we were like, oh, well, like, let's turn this into a class. And so, I'm manifesting like an honorary master's degree so I can teach. I was like,
oh my God.
Next but, up. Like, I couldn't officially teach it because I didn't have a master's degree. So Robert was like our professor, and we taught it. It's like a weekly class on SUC campus. We did some virtual sessions, and then so it was a full semester. And then this past 2 months, we've just been training with our competition team. So we selected 5 folks from both the graduate MBA program and the undergraduate team, and they're competing today and tomorrow.
So when you were not a coach, when you were a student in it, what was the process like? Did you have to like mock build a company and then pretty much go through like the fundraising, the process? Like how did it work?
Yeah, it's a great question. So we were actually mock playing like the venture capitalists. And so our job was to go through like analyzing a pitch, doing due diligence, putting together investment terms as if we were partners at a lead in investing firm. And so it really gave me a bird's eye view into like what a VC did. And I was like, oh, this is cool. It's like a bunch of the stuff that I like doing. Like 1, I get to like talk to really interesting people, building cool companies. 2, I get to like dream big with them. Like what could this be in like 5-10 years, and how can we help you accomplish those goals? I think like and now managing a fund, it's like I'm starting to see the other part of the equation where you have like LPs involved. Like as a venture capitalist, you're not investing your own money, like you're investing other people's money. And so I think that changes the dynamic. It's a lot. It's like playing poker without money versus playing poker with money. Your moves are a bit different because you have like different incentives. And I think it's really helped me make like stronger investment decisions. But it's a really cool base. So you learn how to go through like product market fit, founder industry fit, and fund fit. So that was like really helpful. It was like the first time I was like, oh, this is like super relevant to like the real world. It felt very like applicable. Yeah.
So I guess from you kind of learning the due diligence process there to your due diligence process now, where like was there growth there? I guess my biggest question is, do you find yourself with an edge that you think you personally have when doing due diligence, or you have the traditional metrics that you are looking for depending on sector that is pitching you, I guess? Now, what outside of those general metrics, would you say maybe intangibles that you're looking for in, say, a founder, or where they fit in the market currently, potential market size, that whole deal?
Yeah. So one of the frameworks that I started to discover when I started making my own investment decisions is due diligence is the level of research that you need to do to feel comfortable making a decision, whether that is on behalf of your LPs or in the case of a syndicate, whether that's a company that you want to go out and raise money for like that specific product. And an investment pool, you're raising for like your decision-making skills. And so that is like, I got deeper into due diligence when we started doing that. But at the pre-seed and seed stages, there's not often like metrics. No one really like talks about them. They can vary. We have a pretty broad array of industries that we invest in, from wellness and gaming to creator tools to API first platforms and fintech. So metrics vary across those, across B2B and B2C. And the one thing I keep coming back to is we're very founder first investors. And so in our first meeting, we really want to walk through, you know, who you are, why this is something that you want to build in the next 10 years, what the core problem statement is of the customer demographic that you are looking to serve, and then how have you determined what the solution is through customer interviews. So one of the things that I look at a lot is like how community driven their go-to-market strategy is. Are you talking to users on like a daily or weekly basis about their needs, about their feedback for the platform? I was shocked at how many people don't do that. It feels like pretty low-hanging fruit to talk to like your users on a quite often basis about what they like and don't like about the platform. And I think as a user, it's a pretty cool experience to have a piece of feedback incorporated into a product that you know and might grow to love one day. Those are some of the intangibles that I look for. On the market side, it's interesting because you kind of have to think about market size shifts as your idea shifts. So if you're building a problem statement, the most often way that I look at conflicts of interest within the portfolio, because we don't want to invest in like any conflicting companies, is the problem statement. So is the problem statement that they're solving for the same? Because that's like kind of where I derive the market from. So it's like, what does the market look like for your core customer demographic today? How could that expand based on the solution that you might end up building? But I would say we spend the most time on the founder, their storytelling ability, their hustle, their ability to translate their larger vision to employees, investors, customers. They're always selling something, whether it's equity or like stock, or basically like equity or your product.
I think that's so interesting because I feel like a lot of people think that they go into these meetings and they need to have their numbers. They need to, and they do obviously need the numbers.
No, you definitely do.
But like,
you need to like know your business. That's definitely super important. But a lot of our decision is more founder oriented. It differs. Like every venture firm makes decisions differently. That's just how we make ours.
When you graduate and then I was doing some research, and you had built up a following on Twitter, right?
Yeah,
and
that's kind of the core of everything.
Yeah, I was interested because it said that you kind of leveraged your Twitter following to raise your first fund or your fund, essentially.
Yeah.
Can you walk me through that? Because I've only very recently, I would say within the last 14 months, kind of started to understand social media or like social currency. And so I see and I look at your situation as someone who understands that and leveraged it to work well for you. So I'm like,
It's funny. I think like I love the way that you asked the question because it's very like strategically oriented. I think when I started on Twitter, I was just like vibing and like interested in venture. It was the pandemic, senior year. I was living in my childhood bedroom and my parents were kind of like, okay, like no more talking about venture at the dinner table. And I was like, okay, well, I guess I like have to find other people that like this stuff. Cool. And I had gone to New York in 2019 in December and met with this guy who I didn't follow on Twitter. I just would like, when I was working at this growth equity firm, I realized that a lot of like VCs were on Twitter and they were talking about all this stuff that like no one writes articles about, and they were just like making jokes and like memes about it. And I was like, oh, this is so cool. Like they're making jokes about all this random stuff that I didn't think anyone cared about. And so I would like go to people's profile picture or like profiles on Twitter and just read them like top to bottom instead of like experiencing it as a news feed. And one of these people was Mike Dempsey. I sent him a cold email. I was like, hey, I really love this like tweet. I like saw this article and it reminded me of it. And we went back and forth on email like a couple of times after then. He's like, oh, if you're ever in New York, let me know. And I had like probably $1,000 in my bank account at the time. And I was like, I've never been to New York. Like, let's go. And,
natural.
And so I ended up like going and visiting my cousin. I stayed there for like 3 days with her, got to explore the city, which was really cool. And I met Mike for breakfast. It was supposed to be like 15-minute coffee, ended up turning into a 2-hour breakfast. And he talked like extensively about the importance of writing online for a couple different reasons. So one, like part of my mission is to make other people's journeys a lot shorter than mine. And that may sound funny given my age, but it still took like 4 years of like being interested in venture to start being like, going from a student of the game to playing the game. And he was like, start writing online and you tell people you're interested in and people will find you. Like you just put out your writing and it's like a tuning fork on the internet, whether that's a tweet, whether that's a video. So many people are consuming and not enough people are creating, especially in this industry, because you're just drowning in emails and paperwork all day, which I now am intimately familiar with. But I think him saying that encouraged me to, even though I was like bad at it at the beginning, just like start tweeting. I used to like tweet dumb stuff like dating an entrepreneur is like full-time training for a chief of staff role, which was like my first viral tweet. And that ended up being like why I got a job at a startup, which I think is so funny. But yeah, I was just vibing online, and it was part of a group called I'm Out the Eye. We ended up raising like over $250K for organizations supporting Black lives and turning the internet on its head for like 48 hours. And through that, I realized the power of community and the ability to drive meaningful change by having an organized group of folks on Twitter who are just like taking over. So yeah, that was like kind of how my entrance into what I call the online game.
So now I'm curious because I started on social media in the pandemic via TikTok. Like I went into TikTok thinking it's just like young women dancing provocatively, but I was like, there's got to be people providing some form of value.
Your For You page was questionable then.
It's the algorithm. I don't know what he was looking at.
So all right, whatever. So I joined the app and I'm like, people have to be using this like they use YouTube, just in shorter form, right? Like in YouTube, you can learn quite literally anything. So I was like, I'm going to start making content around things that I like fashion, finance, and fitness. And I'm just going to like make that. And then I'm going to do it for 6 months straight, and I'm going to put 3 videos out every day, and I'm going to see what happens. And so that's pretty much how it started. But I'm curious because the platform is so conducive to smaller creators and pushing them.
It's the same way Twitter is.
Yeah. Do you have a plan to speak like that on TikTok at all? I feel like there's tons of women that would love to hear from a voice like you who has done it, that might not even know venture capital exists, you know?
It's been really funny. I feel like I haven't ventured too much off platform. For example, I think venture capital gets like a pretty aggressively bad rap in like the general population, especially if you're not familiar with my body of work around making it more transparent. Like I got some pretty aggressive comments on like a YouTube video
I read them.
Forbes put up about excellent.
It's just it's people that are uninformed, but yeah
I mean it's fine. It's like I talked to a lot of other creators about this, but they're like, my most engaged content gets the most like negative comments the earliest, and they were just like, I see it as a metric for how successful or provocative that piece of content was, and I was like, interesting. So it was like a good reframing. But yeah, I've been venturing more into podcasting, which is nice because there's a lot more nuance in that medium. I feel like I haven't approached TikTok as heavily because I feel like there's a bit less nuance in the way that TikTok like presents information and is very like short form oriented.
Mm-hmm.
I'd say venture and like my style is more long form oriented. Yeah.
Were you going to say something?
I was going to say something. Those negative comments I feel like they're unavoidable. I think the good thing though with the podcast is that people will like seek out to learn more information and will look for podcasts. You know, you don't really listen to a podcast just to try to hate on it. Like with TikTok and, you know,
it's crazy.
Yeah,
honestly, like hate watching anything is just like such an incredible use of energy, you know, like you're like watching it and having this like visceral hating experience. And I feel like there's an interesting combination of like if you're watching something and you don't care about it versus like you're watching something and like aggressively hating it and like texting your friends like this is so annoying or whatever. I don't know. I feel like with my perspective, I was just like it's like a lot of energy to use up on like not super productive things.
Yeah. I mean, it has such an impact on you to where you have to like, you feel like you have to comment or have to like hate on this person for just, and it's not even like you're promoting anything bad. It's just for some reason
I'm not like friends with people that like leave negative reviews on YouTube channels. So it's like, I don't know.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Like, I mean, you have to put yourself in their shoes, right? They are looking at an extremely young woman in VC on the Forbes 30 under 30 list. Like insecurity is bubbling up in them like a boiling pot. Like, so of course they're going to try to find a way to tear you back down to where they're sitting at. Because the thing that I've realized after being on social media is like people, whether they voice it or not, either want you to be at their level or a little bit under them all the time. As soon as you start to break out a little bit higher, try to pull you back down. Try to keep you.
Like, I think people love supporting like an underdog, but as soon as you get recognized by like traditional or mainstream media, I think that's when like the elements kind of fall away a bit of like the underdog persona. Like you become part of like the institution.
As soon as somebody starts, you know, becoming successful, making, you know, money, especially off of what they're doing, that started out as like I'm doing this for fun. It's like, you're no longer valid anymore. We want to hate on you because you made it. And it's just like, am I supposed to stay an underdog forever?
Like, social media has been like incredibly positive on the whole. I think like the YouTube comments were funny because it was like just not on my like traditional platform. I was like, oh, that's interesting.
So,
but yeah.
Can you walk us through the Forbes 30 under 30 process? I'm curious. I understand how it works a little bit, but more so like how like the process of getting it, and then on release day or whenever it becomes public knowledge, like what was the feedback to you personally? I imagine your parents are obviously familiar with it to some degree, and like it's not an easy thing to do. So I'm curious how it was received within like the circle of people you actually care what they say.
Yeah, this is a great question. So I'm like a big Borgore fan, and honestly, like one of the things that I like could not stop thinking about is like the lyric in his song with G-Eazy, and it's like, "Mom, I made it before," which is so funny. But so the process of the under 30 list, I had attended the Forbes under 30 conference in 2019 as like a student scholar. And so I just tried to talk to as many people that were on the list about like how they got on the list. And for most of them, it was just about like building a community in the industry that they were working in and like giving a lot back to the community. Like giving was like a really core element of who I thought really stood out to me, and I was like, oh, cool. Like that's like a big part of my ethos as well. And then just like building relationships across industry. So not just focusing on like the specific industry that you're in, but like communicating with like journalists and like operators and creators and just getting like a broader base of folks that you know. I said in the video, the Forbes video is not received well because they cut out like part of it before, but talking about how it's like all based on like knowledge, access, and connections. And so like knowledge, like you can learn like on the internet. Access, like you can build through creating your own content. And like, I think there's this idea of like tastemakers are really important, and you can be a tastemaker at any age. You can be a curator at any age, where you kind of have your finger on the pulse of like what's going on within an industry, and that's difficult. And then connections, like I use Twitter to like build all of my connections. I didn't come from like a Silicon Valley family, didn't go to an Ivy school, state school, reppin'. So yeah, that was kind of like my experience. But I just remember like waking up and I knew it was coming out. And I was talking to a couple of my friends that like work in PR, and they were like, you know, praying for like an empty media day. Cause like if like something like traumatic or like bad happens, like it's like a total wash from like a media perspective. Even if it's like not related to what's going on. So it was like clear day, woke up, it came out at like 7 a.m. Eastern time. So I had plans to get up early and then I didn't. And then I got up and I was just like walking. I had like tweeted it, and it was really cool experience. I think, we have 120 investors in our fund. We have like 20 plus portfolio companies. And so I think it was like this like community celebration. Like it wasn't about me. It was like about everyone who had contributed to the journey. And so to see me and my partner featured was like a really cool experience. And, I had gotten to meet like a bunch of like the Forbes team at the Under 30 Summit that I went to last October. So I like sent them texts and I was like, hey, thanks so much. You know, like the article and video looks great. Really appreciate all the hard work that you put in. So like a team of like 30 people that works on, that I met that was like involved in this effort. There's definitely like more. So it was really a cool experience. And my mom was like calling all the Barnes and Nobles in town and like trying to get a physical copy. I don't think she ended up getting one until like 15 days after because of supply chain issues, which is kind of ironic. But yeah, I think I have it. I've been meaning to like do something with it, but I just like ripped it out of a magazine.
Yeah, I feel like maybe framing that, or just, you know, keeping it somewhere other than your desk.
Forbes doesn't provide you a free copy?
I don't know. Maybe. I didn't get one. But I want to frame it like this. This is that like post-it note on the wall.
Oh my gosh. That's great. I like that a lot.
Yeah. Manifestation. Make fun of it until it works.
Mm-hmm. I was that guy.
After that Forbes, the 30 under 30 dropped, did you notice any sort of like, you got more, you know, there was some sort of validation and like people interacted with, you know, you and your partner any differently?
I think a lot of people were like more familiar with like what we did because it talked about kind of like us as a whole versus like us, you experience like fragmented across like different social media platforms. So I think it brought more like brand awareness. I mean, it was always funny like being out in like San Diego and having people come up to me and be like, oh my gosh, I saw you in Forbes. Like people I hadn't seen in like ages. My like high school teachers, and they had like emailed it around the school district, which was really cool. And of course, like see my mom's face after it was really, really special. But I think like for me, it was very like internal framing around of like, okay, like this external validation was a big part of like how I judge success, and I've achieved it. And I feel so grateful to have achieved it at such a young age. And how do I reframe my vision of success? And I think I had like a period where I was like, oh, okay, like what do I do now? And I've been working a lot with this, with my executive coach, and she's been awesome. The main thing we focus on is like success now is defined by like my process and not the outcome. And so I think a lot more about like input metrics, like how much content am I producing? How many founders am I talking to? How many investors am I talking to? How many people am I helping start their own funds? Because those folks will often come back and like send us deals or send us investors and be really grateful for the small part that we play in their journey. And so I think reframing around the just getting better at the process of investing was really helpful. But yeah.
Cool. Your day to day, Like, I guess today's Friday. You haven't been, I guess, 3 hours behind us. But what does that look like for you? Like, are you fielding? I imagine your inbox is just blown up, like insane. But are you just fielding deals all day?
Pretty much. I'm behind on emails right now, so I think I have like 50 emails from today and yesterday to go through right now. Well, like when you're working as a VC, especially at like a smaller fund, a ton of your work is external. So it's like in another company that's larger, you might be like fielding like Slack messages or something like that. Mine just happens to be like all external because of the structure of the fund. But yeah, today I woke up, was going to wake up earlier, didn't. You can see a recurring theme here. I thought about going surfing, but the waves weren't like that great. So I might go in this afternoon. Made myself a cup of coffee. Tried to edit my podcast that I was putting out today in the 20 minutes before my like venture capital investment competition kickoff. That was really cool. I got to see like Charles Hudson, who runs Precursor Ventures, a huge role model of mine. He's just super thoughtful investor. So I got to like DM him on Zoom. And then I also saw one of the judges who was a judge in 2019 when I was doing the competition. He gave me a really great feedback and I was like, hey, so great to see you again. Heard some like pitches from entrepreneurs, and then after that hopped off. I hopped on and I did my like kind of content block on Friday. So I do an hour where I post, so Twitter, LinkedIn. I don't do Instagram that much. And then I did questions I have 2 like content things next week. So one is an interview with the head of revenue for Stripe in America, this awesome, badass woman named Jean. And so I went through, listened to a bunch of podcast episodes, pulled her questions, or pulled her answers and then shaped questions around that, like 2 pages, sent that to her team for approval. And then I went through and formatted, I'm hosting like a Spaces on Wednesday, February 16th.
I saw that.
Around like, being a first time fund manager. It was so funny. I saw someone doing it and I was like, I'm gonna just tweet it. Like people would probably come and like listen. And I do like this a lot one-on-one, but I am finding increasingly it would be helpful to like do it in a more scalable way. So I think doing like an open Q&A will be really cool. And then met with a founder that we're looking at investing in. Fielded emails, although I need to do more of that. Hopped on with you all. And then after this, probably a lot more emails. Usually Fridays are pretty like light. The rest of the days, it's usually like 7 to 8 back-to-back calls with like potential investors, other fund managers that we work closely with, operators in the space, folks who are looking to get jobs at portfolio company founders, and then founders that we are evaluating, like investing in, and then making investment decisions, making content. But yeah, that's what.
So it's obviously a lot, and we talked about this in a previous podcast, and I think I read an article where you mentioned this, and you talk about burnout, and especially in VC, but it seems like you take this like holistic approach. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Sure. I'm pretty like anti-hustle, which is really funny because I feel like I work really hard, but I would say some like important things to me are like making sure I like exercise every day, because like a dog, like a tired dog is a good dog. Like I feel like your brain can like go all sorts of weird places if you're not exercising and like using that energy in that fashion. So I love surfing or going to the gym or tennis. So I'll try and like exercise at least once a day. And then like holistically, I think the concept of play is really important, and like reading. So I'll try and make time for things where I'm consuming content that's not super startup oriented. I think like a cross-disciplinary approach has been really important to what makes me stand out both as an investor and a content creator. So I have like, sometimes I'll just block off days for like greenhouse days, and I'll just like incubate my little different ideas about what I'm thinking about. I'm really into like interior design, bioarchitecture. I've been into like Ikebana recently, which is like a minimalist Japanese floral arranging style. But yeah, I don't know. I feel like I just like don't take myself that seriously. I'm just like vibing.
It almost sounds like kind of your approach marries some form of creativity in a rather analytical role. And it's something that I've talked about before. Like I was on the debt side of commercial real estate before I started my brand, and the brand started and the social media started out of just needing a creative escape. Like I couldn't just sit in my spreadsheets all day, day after day.
Yeah.
Like I was going crazy. I remember sitting at my desk thinking, if I have to do this for 40 more years, there's no way I'm going to make it. Like I'm not going to make it. So yeah, I mean, I am curious if it ties back to your mom being a creative and your dad being very much in an analytical, not much
100%.
creativity role.
Well, I think like the unique thing that I saw when I was growing up is I learned that there was a lot more math and art than I anticipated. And I learned there was a lot more art and engineering than I anticipated. I think that like math is such an incredible universal language. I was like a calc tutor in college, and like that was one of the things I really nerded out on.
We were not a math
Not math people.
But I just like always really enjoyed that intersection. I think that oftentimes people can approach it in a very like one-dimensional way, but seeing my mom and dad's relationship and then how they would like talk about the different creative or analytical aspects of what they were doing was really incredible. And so I think I approached like whatever career that I was going to take in a similar matter of like, I am a creative and I want to have that shine through in whatever I'm doing. I picked like a field that from the outside looks very like analytical, but I think it's a very like creative position because you can really like make of it what you want. When you're fundraising, like you're raising a blind pool of capital for the types of companies you're interested in, the types of stages that you're interested in, types of like founders that you want to invest in. It's like a big process of self-discovery and finding out like what works for you. So it's kind of like what I think about. It definitely like ties a lot back to my mom and dad. It's cool. I have like 2 younger brothers, and I think they each got like, one of them got like the artistic gene a lot stronger, and he's the one that illustrated my children's book. And then my middle brother got he's just like he has this incredible emotional intelligence, and then he's also like very analytical. So when I talked about like physical intelligence like earlier, I think he's like very in tune with like energetically what feels right to him, and he's like a bit more introverted but so thoughtful. And so it's interesting to see kind of like those characteristics played out in like different doses. So I would say I'm like pretty strongly 50-50. And then my brothers have kind of gotten like more concentrated on the analytical and artistic side.
Do they use you as a resource? Like not many people can say my sister is as successful as you are. Are they coming to you?
To them it's like I'm just like their sister, they were joking. So I've made like a pretty big decision to stay in San Diego because that's where my family is, and that's kind of been a creative constraint in my journey. But it was funny. I was home and Owen was like, "Can we like get not dinner party Paige?" Like, and I was like, "What?" And he was like, "Being like dinner party Paige, like, can you just be like normal and like hang out?" And I was like, "Oh yeah, like sorry, I didn't realize I was doing that." But I think like I'm just their big sister, and I think growing up they definitely looked up to me. I don't think that's changed based on my like level of success. I think I'm still like the goofy, like creative person that I always was. Just has like manifested more in the world now. But yeah, they're awesome. I spend a lot of time with them. We love going surfing together. Owen illustrated my book, and Tate's super interested in doing like video editing, so I might have him like edit some stuff.
Put him to work. That's how I hired Sean. Do you see yourself on like the West Coast or San Diego forever? Or like, do you not know? Are you interested in moving anywhere?
So like the really lovely thing about San Diego is I have like my friends don't really work in tech, and then my family doesn't work in tech, and I'm like 5-minute drive from the beach, and I can surf all the time. And then I'll go off and have these like fantastic trips where I go to New York, or I go to Miami, or I go to San Francisco for like 3 or 4 days, and like bunch of meetings stacked in, like incredible time. And then I come back and I like do my thing. But I think it's nice to be like relatively like distraction free. I would say the pace of life here is really nice for, being creative, being in nature. Also, I don't think I can handle cold weather. I was born in New Hampshire.
It's been
and
brutal.
Like, those genes have left the building because if it gets like below 65 here, I'm like freezing. So
is there a noticeable difference when you go to the East Coast and the West Coast, where after like a week, are you like, oh, I can't do the East Coast? Not just the weather, just in terms of like people.
No, I love New York, honestly. New York's like one of my favorite cities. I've spent like I've spent like I guess 4 days in Miami. I went during Boswell, which was really fun, and then I was in New York for like 3 weeks over September. I like don't really tell people when I'm gonna show up. Like I'll just like pop up places, which I think is really fun. But yeah, I love New York. I mean, we have like a handful of portfolio companies there. We have like 30 plus investors, and like there's always something going on there. The style is incredible. I'm like way into sneakers, and like I always see like the most fire fits, and so like I love that aspect of it.
Well, yeah. I don't want to hold you up any longer. And I do appreciate you coming on. I'm sure your email inbox has quadrupled since you've been sitting here. But please do plug your socials. I'll put them on. I'll put probably your entire, I forget what the link thing is called, but in the bio and beacons, on
we're
here.
An investor. Plug for beacons.
Should I switch to that?
What?
Should I switch to beacons?
Pretty sweet.
All right.
Yeah, I can give you my referral code.
All right. Maybe I'll make the switch today.
But yeah, I'm most active on Twitter, Paige Finn with 3 N's. And then on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, Seed to Harvest by Paige Finn Doherty. It's mainly where I create content so far. But
Seed to Harvest book.
Thank you so much for having me. This was so fun. Oh yeah, and the Seed to Harvest book is available on Amazon if you're curious about learning more about venture capital after this episode.
All right. Well, thank you again, Paige. It was great to meet you.
Likewise.
Take care.
Okay, cool. It's done recording.